The day had started like any other, grey and heavy with drizzle, blanketing the small town of Asheville, Ohio, in a damp gloom. Samuel Fletcher, 32, pulled his jacket tighter against the wind, his eyes weary but alert. He was used to mornings like this, mornings that felt like the world itself was pressing down on him, reminding him of all the things he had lost. 2 years ago, Samuel's wife, Rebecca, had been gone, taken suddenly by a tragic accident, and since then life had felt like a constant balancing act on a thin, fragile line. Bills needed to be paid, meals needed to be made, and most importantly, his daughter needed him to be strong. Claire, his 7-year-old, walked beside him in quiet contemplation, her little backpack bouncing lightly with every step. She was a tender-hearted girl with soft honey-brown curls and wide, expressive hazel eyes that seemed to notice everything around her. She had inherited her mother's empathy and her father's resilience, though in ways that were uniquely her own. Today, she was unusually solemn, glancing around the empty playground with a quiet longing that made Samuel's chest tighten. As they approached the park bench near the swings, Samuel noticed a boy sitting alone, hunched over his lunchbox, poking at the food inside without really eating. He wore a faded grey hoodie that hung loosely on his small frame, sleeves fraying at the edges. His hair was dark, tousled, and his cheeks carried a hint of pallor from days without proper nourishment. Samuel's heart constricted. The boy looked as if he had been invisible for so long that he didn't even expect anyone to notice him. Claire, however, noticed him immediately. Her small hand tugged on her father's coat, soft but insistent. "Daddy," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "He looks hungry." The weight of those words struck Samuel harder than he expected. He wanted to look away, to avoid the reminder of the hardships outside their home, but he couldn't. He swallowed, feeling a familiar sting of helplessness, the same he had felt the first time Claire had asked why her mommy wasn't there anymore. And then, in the kind of moment that could change everything, Claire stood up, holding her half-eaten sandwich tightly. "You can have my lunch, and my mommy's spot," she said softly. Samuel froze. His heart pounded in his chest. The mommy spot was a sacred place on the bench, a little corner Claire had claimed when her mother used to sit with her. It was a space filled with memory and love, a place of grief and remembrance. And here she was, offering it up to a boy she barely knew. Samuel's throat tightened as he watched her step forward, her small hand extending her sandwich. The boy looked up, startled, and for a moment, their eyes met, his wide and unsure, hers full of fearless compassion. Viewer engagement moment. If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, make sure to like this video, comment below, share it, and subscribe to our channel. You never know whose heart you might touch by spreading compassion. The boy, Mason, hesitated. He hadn't been offered something like this in a long time. His world was full of cold silences and unmet needs. Generosity was a foreign concept. Trembling, he accepted the sandwich, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Samuel felt something shift inside him, an unspoken understanding that this small act, this simple offering, was more powerful than anything he could have imagined. From that day forward, Mason began appearing at the park more frequently, often at the same time Samuel and Claire were there. Claire insisted he join them, bringing extra snacks, sharing stories about school and life, and even offering small bits of advice she remembered from her mother. Samuel watched in quiet amazement as the two children built a bridge between two very different worlds. Laughter began to echo across the playground, tentative at first, then growing stronger with each visit. But life wasn't without its hurdles. Mason's home situation was unstable. His mother struggled with addiction, and there were weeks when Mason didn't appear at the park at all, leaving Claire pouting and Samuel worried. Samuel found himself grappling with helplessness once again, struggling to protect a child he hadn't yet fully taken into his home. The social worker involved in Mason's case warned of potential foster care placements, and Samuel's stomach churned at the thought of losing the boy. Then, one chilly autumn evening, the situation reached a breaking point. Samuel received a call. Mason's mother had been taken to rehabilitation, and unless another family could provide temporary care, Mason would be placed in foster care far from the town he had begun to call a safe space. That night, Samuel watched Claire kneeling beside Mason, her small hand brushing back his messy hair. "Daddy, can't we just keep him with us? Just like family?" she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. Samuel felt his heart crack. He knew the system was rigid, but he also knew the boy deserved a chance to heal, to feel the warmth of family, and to be loved. Determined, he began a grueling journey through bureaucratic channels, making phone calls, arranging meetings, and advocating for Mason's right to remain close to the people who cared for him. Each day felt like a battle, and there were moments when Samuel feared the fight was hopeless. Yet, inspired by Claire's unwavering belief in kindness and the small miracles that had already begun, he pressed on. Weeks of persistence finally bore fruit. Mason's mother entered a structured rehabilitation program. Supervised visits were approved, and Samuel's home became a sanctuary for the boy. Claire's joy knew no bounds. She insisted on preparing meals for Mason, making sure he always had a place on the couch beside her, and even creating a small corner of the living room she dubbed Mason's spot. Slowly, Mason's confidence blossomed. The shadows of fear and abandonment began to lift, replaced by laughter, curiosity, and a cautious but growing trust in the world around him. The small victories continued. Samuel noticed Mason reading aloud to Claire one evening, his voice timid but growing stronger with each page. Claire giggled at his mistakes, correcting him gently, and Samuel felt a swell of pride at how the two had become inseparable. Their bond reminded him daily of the transformative power of compassion. On a crisp Sunday afternoon, the three of them returned to the park where Claire had first shared her lunch. The clouds had parted, and sunlight bathed the playground in warmth. Mason held a small bouquet of wildflowers he had picked from the grass, his fingers trembling as he offered them to Claire. She accepted with a giggle, tucking the flowers into her hair, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Samuel watched, tears pricking his eyes, realizing that the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, touching lives in ways no one could predict. Life continued, not without struggle, but with a newfound sense of hope. Mason grew healthier and more confident, and the bond between the children strengthened. Samuel learned to let go of the constant fear that loss would define their lives. Instead, he embraced the beauty in the present, the laughter of two children, the quiet moments of understanding, the small, sacred rituals that made a home feel whole again. Sometimes, late at night, Samuel would sit by the window, thinking of Rebecca and imagining her smiling at the life they had built, proud of the love and courage his daughter displayed every day. And sometimes he would glance at Mason, curled up with a book, a faint smile on his lips, and feel the quiet miracle of human connection. Grief still lingered at the edges of his heart, but it no longer dictated the rhythm of his days. Instead, love, patience, and the smallest gestures of compassion illuminated the path. Forward. The moment that had begun with a simple sandwich and an offered seat, the mommy spot, had transformed into something far greater. It was a testament to the power of empathy, to the enduring resilience of children, and to the undeniable truth that even in a world that can feel harsh and lonely, kindness could create miracles. Samuel often repeated to himself, as he watched Claire and Mason playing in the yard or reading together, that these quiet miracles were what life was truly about. The small acts that change lives in ways that ripple far beyond our immediate perception. Viewer engagement moment. If this story touched your heart, please engage with the video. Like, comment, and share it with someone who needs a reminder of the beauty of kindness. And before you leave, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below your own story of a small act of compassion that changed someone's life. Every story matters. You can have my lunch. And my mommy spot, Claire had whispered that day in the drizzle. What had seemed like the simplest gesture of a 7-year-old girl's heart had grown into a story of transformation, hope, and enduring love. Samuel knew, deep in his soul, that the world would continue to challenge them, but with hearts open and hands willing to reach out, even the smallest acts could ignite change. And as he watched the two children laugh and run through the park, sunlight warming their faces, he realized that life, in all its complexity, had also given him one of its greatest gifts: faith in human kindness.